all you need to know, the Bloomberg Quint podcast that prepares you for the day's business.
It's Friday today, September 11th. Good morning and welcome to the daily morning news update from Bloomberg Quint. I'm Menaka Doshi. The technology stocks sell-off resumed on Wall Street last night after a few days' break this week. The Nasdaq and the S&P 500 closed 2% lower each. US government bonds were higher, as was the dollar. Crude prices dropped another 2%. Brent crude now trading below $40 a barrel. Gold was marginally weaker too. The European Central Bank kept its emergency monetary stimulus unchanged, maintaining the flood of liquidity that has calmed markets and kept borrowing costs low. But ECB Bank President Christine Lagarde did say that the surging euro must be monitored for its impact on prices, though she did not signal any pressing need to adjust monetary policy. The euro has soared more than 10% against the dollar since March, and it moved higher yet again on Thursday. All right, back home, the government is planning to offer incentives worth 1.68 trillion rupees, that's roughly $23 billion, to attract companies to set up manufacturing facilities in India. There's no formal announcement out, but this is according to a Bloomberg story citing sources. These will be production-linked incentives to automobile manufacturers, solar panel makers, specialty steel companies, consumer appliance companies, maybe even textile units, food processing plants, and specialized pharmaceutical product makers. The policy is being crafted by the Niti Aayog and is modeled on an earlier effort that succeeded in bringing several international mobile phone manufacturers to India by offering them an amount equivalent to 4 to 6% of their incremental sales over the next 5 years. For a few months now, the Supreme Court has been hearing a batch of petitions questioning the loan moratorium guidelines that require borrowers to pay deferred interest, that's interest on interest, once the moratorium lifts. Well, in Thursday's hearing, the court gave the government and RBI 2 more weeks to offer their final views before it passes an order. Soon after, on Thursday evening, the government announced a 3-person committee set up to look into this issue of waiver of interest and interest on loans that were under moratorium. The panel will submit its report in 1 week. Reliance Industries is offering to sell roughly $20 billion of stake in its retail business to Amazon.com. Now, that's according to a Bloomberg story citing a source. Reliance Industries is willing to sell as much as a 40% stake in the subsidiary to Amazon. That's what the person told Bloomberg. Now, if a deal is successful, it would not only create a retail giant in India, but it will also turn Jeff Bezos and Mukesh Ambani from rivals into allies. The company has said it cannot comment on any speculative news, but the Reliance stock did soar on this story. Hormuz will have more on that in just a bit. Citigroup has picked Jane Fraser as its next CEO, making it the first time a top Wall Street bank will be led by a woman. Fraser will succeed Mike Corbat, who is retiring in February after more than 8 years in the top job. She has run the bank's consumer unit, private bank, and Latin American operations in her 16-year tenure. The IMF on Thursday said there is a need for another stimulus in India, especially expenditures on health, food, and income support for vulnerable households, as well as support for businesses. A detailed, well-communicated, and credible medium-term fiscal consolidation plan is also important, alongside an increase in fiscal transparency, the IMF spokesperson said. The border situation has intensified, reports the Indian Express. Indian troops are being deployed in large numbers on the north bank of Pangong Tso in Ladakh, where the Chinese buildup has increased significantly in the last 48 hours. A government source told the newspaper that the situation remains tense and less than 500 meters separate troops of both countries. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi met in Moscow for over 2 hours on Thursday, according to Times of India. No word yet on the outcome of that meeting. And now for a quick check on how markets are faring this morning. Asian markets have opened lower across the board after last night's Wall Street sell-off. Hormuz Fatakia joins in now with how Indian stocks are poised. Good morning, Hormuz.
Good morning to you, Menka, and to our listeners as well. If somebody asked you to define strength, show them the gains made by the Nifty on Thursday and then show them the contribution from Reliance Industries to those gains. The stock contributed 114 out of the 171 points that the index gained during the weekly options expiry session. That's 66% of the overall gain contributed by one stock. The second best in terms of point contributions was Infosys with 10 points. Reliance Industries, however, has clarified on the news that Menka mentioned earlier that it does not comment on speculations. On to some other stocks, and InfoEdge, which holds a 22% stake in Zomato, will be in focus after the food delivery chain closed primary funding of $100 million from Tiger Global and $60 million from Temasek Holdings. The transaction values Zomato at a post-money valuation of $3.3 billion. HT Global IT Solutions, the promoter of Hexaware Technologies, has released a pledge of over 18.5 crore shares or 62% stake pledged to Deutsche Bank and 6 other lenders, so that'll be one stock to watch out for. The Army Static Switched Communications Network, or ASCON, has given its approval to ITI for a project for which it was declared the lowest bidder in 2017. The project is valued at close to 7,800 crore rupees. The stock ended 12% higher on Wednesday. The board of Amber Enterprises has approved closure of its QIP. The company will allot nearly 22.5 lakh shares at 1,780 rupees a share, which is a 1% discount to the floor price. Jammu and Kashmir Bank says that it expects its loan book to grow between 5 to 7%. The lender is also looking for capital augmentation to the tune of 4,500 crore rupees in order to boost its lending capacity. The stock will also be reacting to its quarterly numbers reported late on Thursday. Some other stocks that will react to earnings include Hindustan Aeronautics, Hindustan Copper, and Jai Bharat Maruti. Amongst companies that will report earnings today include BHEL, IRCTC, Mishra Dhatu Nigam or Midhani, Rail Vikas Nigam, Adani Green Energy, and Future Supply Chain Solutions. An IPO update, Route Mobile's issue was subscribed 4.2 times on the second day of bidding, with the retail portion being subscribed close to 7 times. While Thursday was all about Reliance Industries, there were a few more stocks that did well in trade, and India Cements is one of them. The stock snapped a 4-day losing streak on Thursday, ending 7% higher, which was its biggest single-day gain in nearly 4 months. And Blue Dart continues to grow from strength to strength. The stock ended 9% higher on Thursday at its highest level in 6 months. It has now gained 30% in the last 6 trading sessions. And lastly, watch for Alembic. The stock ended 9% higher on Thursday at a record high. The stock has multiplied 5 times from its 52-week low of 24 rupees that it made in March this year. Early ticks on the SGX Nifty indicate that the index is trading 30 points lower around the mark of 11,430. You can get more details on all of these stocks and a lot more in our All You Need to Know copy on BloombergQuint.com. That's all from me this week. I wish you a happy weekend and hand it back to Menka.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Hormuz. And to those of you tuning in, have a great Friday and a fun weekend. Make sure to stay tuned to BloombergQuint.com. We'll see you on Monday morning.
I hope you enjoyed listening to All You Need to Know. Did you know that you can listen to the show on the IVM Podcast app? On the IVM Podcast app, along with this, we have a number of other shows which you think you'll enjoy. Listen to Cyrus Says with Cyrus Brocha as the host. Listen to Paisa Vaisa with Anupam Gupta. The Scene and the Unseen with Amit Verma. Or Shunya One hosted by Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay and myself. Check out the IVM Podcast app to get more talk content that you will enjoy.